This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Don't change the way we're playing, and this is a grind because now we have a really high level Colorado team, and then we got to go in and play Vegas. So just can't take our feet off the gas. We had a slow start to the season and kind of clawed our way back here, but it's a long way to go.
Come on, we can't be looking ahead to the schedule, John Cooper. I refuse to look ahead to Vegas. Colorado's tonight. I mean, heck, we said Washington in a couple of games, so who are we? It's always fun to listen to coaches, though.
Yeah.
Talk about game at a time.
The one game at a time, and then the game after next.
But by
I
the
think
way,
he's looking at the road trip.
And I think they do. So anytime a coach says, the 60-minute game I've kind of put to bed, I hope that continues to pick up steam nationally. It's just not possible.
Greg has started a movement.
The other thing is, coach is not looking at the schedule. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I mean, come on, we're not.
Well,
we're not
of course
naive.
they do. Just based on the goaltending rotation alone, they look at the schedule. They have to plan it out and plot it out.
Agreed.
I mean, Coop said Nick Paul is going to be day to day after they come back from the road trip, so he knew that he had to pack, right? He had to pack for 6 days or whatever it is.
Yep.
6.5.
It is what it is. I think you have to in today's age, to your point. I mean, you're planning these trips. I think you have to know what's ahead. Not that you're pacing yourself in any way, but I think it does give you an idea. Your assistant coaches are the ones who are preparing for the next game. So obviously they're in your a little bit about what you have coming up. Look, I don't think with the opponent tonight, you're not really looking too far ahead. Colorado's a bear, and you should be focused on them regardless. I mean, 100% all the effort is on this team because, Dave, if you're not ready, they'll skate you out of the building.
Well, they will, and that's nothing new. I mean, they've been that way going back really since the time McCarr arrived. McCarr arrived with a bang. I mean, he came right out of college and joined them basically for a playoff run, and he's been one of the top defensemen and top players in the NHL ever since.
Yep.
He had 30 goals last year, Greg.
That's incredible.
I mean, 2-time Norris Trophy winner. He's going to add to that number. I am certain. He's gotten off to a great start this year. He's got 18 points already this year. The next closest defenseman has 11. So, I mean, he's already galloping ahead. He's such a big part of what they do and a great compliment to the other speedy guys they have on the team, notably McKinnon. But Natchez, who they acquired from Carolina last year in the Rantanen trade, along with Jack Drury, who's a good player. He's playing his 300th game in the NHL tonight, Jack Drury I'm talking about. But Natchez can fly. So you have to be ready to deal with their team speed. Also, as we have talked about frequently on the show, and certainly this year, if you pass the puck well, you play even faster. And Colorado passes the puck well. This is a team without an apparent weakness to me. I mean, I think I mentioned they've lost 5 games in overtime. They've played 13. And they still have more points than any other team in the NHL. Mm-hmm. They've one regulation loss. And that was by a goal. They lost in Boston, I think. Was that the game they lost? And, I mean, that game was on. It was an afternoon game. That game was on while the Lightning were getting ready to play. Yeah, they lost at Boston on October 25th. So the Lightning were getting ready to play an afternoon game themselves at home against Anaheim. And I had that game on kind of off to the side in the press box because they had it on. Yeah. And Colorado was dominating the game. I mean, they outshot the Bruins in that game 33-19. That's the only game that they've lost in regulation. The other games that they've lost have all been in overtime in the shootout. 3 in overtime, 2 in the shootout. Again, you just flip a couple of those, and they have an even bigger lead. So, like the famous quote, they are who we thought they were.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's supposed to mean that a team is actually less good than how they perform. Colorado is as good as they have performed. They are a terrific team. This is going to be a huge test. I actually hadn't realized that Mackenzie Blackwood, who is really their number one, played his first game of the year in their last game. He's been injured. Scott Wedgwood, who was the third goalie for the Lightning in the bubble, spent a year in the Lightning's organization, but they brought him to the bubble behind Vasilevsky and McElhinney. He's since gone on and been in the NHL. In fact, he had a big shutout win when he was with Dallas in a subsequent year against the Lightning, 1-0. He's had another game against the Lightning, and the Lightning won that game, but he played well. He has a career goals against the Lightning of 1. Do I think he's going to get the start tonight? They may be looking to work Blackwood back in because I think he's going to see the bulk of the action now that he is healthy. But, Wedgwood, I think, has played every game but 2 before Blackwood came back. So they're doing it with him and Ned. He's a good goalie. I'm not saying it to dismiss him, but look at their numbers. We often talk about the metrics, the key metrics, the ones the Lightning did well in last year. So surprisingly, the one that is not really near the top for Colorado, the only one, is power play. So kind of like the Lightning, their power play percentage is a little bit better than the Lightning's. Their power play is tied for 23rd. They're at 16.3%. It hasn't really, I shouldn't say it hasn't hurt them because maybe some of those games that went to overtime, if their power play had popped in a goal, they would have won it in regulation. But check this out. They're number 4 in goals allowed per game. That's with Wedgwood seeing the bulk of the action, 2.54. They're tied for 5th in offense, 3.62. They are just dominating teams possession-wise. Number 1 in shots for per game, 34.2, and 4th best in fewest shots allowed per game, 25.2. They are averaging 9 more shots taken per game than their opponent, and their penalty kill is excellent. It's right behind the Lightning's, 89.7. So you think of the Avs and you're like, high-scoring team. They got guys who can fly. Yeah, they have some scorers, but they're D'ing up. I mean, if you're coming in 4th in goals against, and we're not like 2 days into the season. I mean, we're a month into the season at this point, just shy of a month. That tells you kind of how this team is built. They have done a great job building this team. I don't know if they would have been better had they kept Rantanen. He is a heck of a player, but I tell you what, they did very, very well in that trade. Forgetting what happened with Rantanen in Carolina. For them to get Natchez and Jack Drury, who's a terrific bottom 6 guy, then they added Nelson at the deadline.
Who's a good player.
And he re-signed with them, so he's here. I mean, you're bringing him out, I'm presuming, right behind McKinnon as your number 2 center. They are a deep, deep team. This is going to be a challenge for the Lightning.
The other thing, too, is we always talk about having Hall of Famers kind of at each level, whether it's on the back end, the forward position, in nets, and the Lightning have had that for a while. Mm-hmm. It's been one of the reasons they've been able to be so impactful. But, I mean, you can make a case. Like, I don't know the Avs are there with their netminder. And, look, I think they showed that they don't need a Hall of Famer to win a cup.
Can I just interject, though, Greg, because I read this in the notes. I didn't know this either. Because remember last year they had Georgiev, right? And they weren't happy with Georgiev at the start of last year. He'd been a pretty good goalie for them, though, prior to last year. They got off to a tough start last year, and they were giving up too many goals. They made the trade with San Jose. They got Blackwood, and I guess they added Wedgwood last year, too. I guess I should look up and see when Wedgwood arrived and how he arrived. So they made a trade with Nashville to get Wedgwood in late November. Blackwood arrived around the same time. From the point that those 2 guys arrived, their goals against dropped like an anchor, like in a good way. They were well under 3 in terms of their goals against with these 2 guys in net last year. So while I'm not disagreeing, like they don't have a guy who has the reputation of pick one of the top goalies in the NHL. Vasilevsky, Hellebuck.
Yeah.
We still want to say Shesterkin, guys who play a lot. I'm not sure people would say, well, Mackenzie Blackwood is that guy. And I don't know if he's going to play 3 out of every 4. The split may be a little bit more even with Wedgwood, but this combination works for Colorado. The proof is in the pudding of kind of what they did last year when these 2 guys arrived. And look at their numbers this year with mostly Wedgwood in net.
Yeah, and, look, they they found a way to win a cup without that type of
Right.
Hall of Famer in net. So that probably speaks to how good their team was. What I'm saying, though, is McKinnon and Makar, not only are they elite, I mean, now you're getting into that area where are they the best at their position? I mean, Makar, would you agree, most would say is probably the best defenseman out there. I mean, hard to quibble.
Well,
with it,
he
right?
is certainly the most dynamic defenseman in the NHL.
However
Although
you
there
wanna
are
phrase it.
contenders. I'm going to say dynamic because I'm not sure that he has ever been considered one of the best defensive defensemen. Like, if you didn't allow him to cross the red line, let's say, in some weird hockey world where all he could do is play from the red line back to his own net, he's a good defenseman, and he can skate out of trouble. I'm not sure that he is considered
But if you're doing a
elite.
draft,
But everything else,
yeah, I
he
mean,
is like number one by a wide margin for sure.
if you're giving me, hey, you get one pick on the back end to start, who are you taking? I'd say 90% of the people are going to pick Makar.
But here's the thing. You've got Quinn Hughes, although he's only got, I looked up his stats this year. He's only got 7 points. So Vancouver's off to a weird start. But he is a terrific, and he's kind of
good player.
cut from the same cloth as Makar in that, like, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he can skate like the wind. This Matthew Schaefer. I mean, we had Brendan Burke on last week when TNT was in to do the game between the Lightning and Stars, and we asked him about Schaefer. And basically he said, like, he can skate like the wind as well. Now, does he have all of the offensive kind of tools that Makar has? Remains to be seen, but certainly, he's already a very, very good player. I mean, you've seen the Islanders rallied for they scored 2 goals like in the last minute and a half to snatch a win. They were down by 1, and Schaefer got his second goal of the game to tie it, and then they scored again before overtime. Like, they got the game into the regulation win column. That's a bad loss for Columbus and a tough loss. But Schaefer is here. Like, Schaefer is going to enter that conversation for sure. And I think there are other guys, too, that you can look at and say, these are very dynamic-minded defensemen. But Makar is the cream of the crop. At least right now, he holds the crown. You're putting in 30 goals.
Yeah, I mean, those
holding
guys
the crown.
may get there. He has. So at
He
least in
has.
this conversation. And
he just turned 27, Greg.
Right.
I mean,
this
he's
is
got
the
he
prime
is
of his career.
Smack dab in the prime of his career. Yeah.
And look, most people would take McDavid if you're talking about top offensive forward. I get that.
Right.
McKinnon is McKinnon is, you look at his points per game over the course of his career. He is, if not in contention with McDavid, right below him, but is still, he is a Hall of Famer who's going to be one of those players, may go down top 15 total points of all time in terms of his path, where he is right now. These are not only elite, but you're starting to talk about potentially some best of all time at these positions. So they deserve your attention in terms of what they do on the ice. So for the Lightning, when John Cooper talks about not hurting ourselves, eliminating the risk, this is the game you circle and say, all right, that's not coach speak. Like, when McKinnon's on the ice, we can't be fancy with the puck. When Makar is anywhere on the ice, that cross-ice pass from our zone to the blue line, like, we can't make that pass because Makar is going to sniff it out. Oh, and by the way, Dave probably plays half the game. And do they have other guys who can hurt you? Of course they do. I'm not sure Landeskog is back,
and he's
and that's
playing
gonna
less.
be tough.
They had in the notes he missed over 1,000 days. Now, some of that was off season.
Yeah, sure.
He played in Game 6 of the 2022 Stanley Cup Final and did not play another NHL game until the playoffs last year. Game 3 of the Dallas series, which they lost in excruciating fashion in the first round. But so he's back this year and he's playing. I think he's got 1 point. He's their captain. He's contributing. If you're starting 7-1-5, everyone is helping.
Right.
But I notice his minutes are down from where they used to be. He's going to be, I think he has a birthday coming up later this month. He's going to be 33. Sure. So it's tough. It's tough to come back, and it was a major injury, right? So, or a major procedure. Like, it was, his hip or something like that.
For sure.
So those are tough to come back from, and good for him that he did it. But they have other guys that are playing a lot more, right? Like Necas is over 20 minutes,
and he just signed a huge contract.
Yeah,
I mean, I like Marty Necas. That's a big contract for him. And now part of that was they didn't want to lose him also to free agency and really not get anything in return.
Yeah,
from that big trade. So I get the thinking there. He's a good player, and you could even say he's a really good player. But
I mean, I'm looking at their minutes. Brock Nelson is playing almost 20 minutes a game.
Brock Nelson's a good player.
Yeah. Then you've got Lehkonen. He's playing almost 20 minutes a game. I mean, that for a forward, that's not excessive, but it just tells you, like, how are they spreading out the minutes? Val Nichushkin, who has kind of had some issues the last couple of years, been away from the team, back with the team. He's with the team now, and we know he's a very good player. He's got 9 points in 13 games. He is averaging just over 18 minutes a game. So remember a couple of years ago, like, we looked at the Avs ice time, and it really felt like Jared Bednar was in a position where he's like, I have to play these, like, 5 forwards. I almost have to overplay them. There were 5 forwards that were all over 20 minutes a game. Now there are 2. Which is, like, McKinnon's always going to be over 20 minutes, right? But Necas is over 20 minutes, but he's not up by, like, 21, 22. What's he at? All right, I stand corrected. He's at 21-14. McKinnon's at 21-43. That's high. I mean, it's not as high as some forwards. Usually McDavid is the highest if we look at forward ice time in the NHL. But 2 is different than 5 forwards. You know, you had Rantanen up there. You had Lehkonen up there. He's now under 20 minutes. It just goes to show, I think Bednar, the minutes always told a story for me with Colorado since they won the Cup before last year, maybe even before the deadline last year. He was like, who have I got? I'm in a 1-goal game. I need a good shift. One of these 5 forwards or some group of these, you're going back out there. Play. That's to get through a regular season, and then you've got, you hope, 2 months of playoff hockey. I'm not sure if that is really the proper formula. I mean, we sometimes talk about our defensemen playing too much. You have 5 of your top 11 or 12 forwards all playing over 20 minutes a game over the course of a full season before you even drop the puck in a playoff series. That's a lot. Now, McKinnon is a horse. McKinnon can handle it. But I think what we're seeing here is that the Avs have addressed some of that depth through deals, through guys who are, you know, acclimating and coming up. I mean, they have a guy who's a fairly late draft pick, Bardakov. He's a center. He's not playing a lot, but, you know, he's a young guy that they brought up and seems to be doing pretty well. He's a plus player. Mentioned Drury, and that's a good addition for them.
It is.
Drury is averaging 14 and a half minutes a game. That's right where you want probably a guy in the bottom 6 who's a center to be at. So I think that they have a more well-rounded team this year, just on paper.
And they, to your point, they can all skate. They're all dynamic to a degree, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on a team like the Lightning tonight, in addition to the elements, which is always a factor, to play well.
I know when the Lightning have come to Denver in the past, and this was something that Coop mentioned when the teams met in the Stanley Cup final, because the Lightning were here like a full week. So I'm not sure if this necessarily jives, because they were more competitive in Game 1 than they were in Game 2. Game 2, they got absolutely blown out. So I think they arrived on a Monday for the Cup final. Game 1 was Wednesday, and Game 2 was Saturday. So they basically spent a week in Denver. And Coop said the altitude got to us in Game 2. Right. That's like 5-6 days later after you arrived. Mm-hmm. What I do remember, though, George Gwiazdecki, who's still here in Denver, and I believe coaching high school. He spent a couple of years as an assistant with the Lightning when Coop first got promoted. Not hired, but promoted. Gwiazdecki, prior to joining the Lightning, had been the head coach of University of Denver and had great success here. He was here a long time. And what he said was, for teams coming in to the altitude, And usually in college hockey, a team would arrive Thursday. They play game 1 Friday. They play game 2 Saturday. He's like, it was always the second game that affected them more. It's almost like it's better to get in and get out, which is a little counterintuitive. You're kind of like, once we get in, we're at altitude, we're going to struggle. If we're here a day, we get used to it. Apparently, that's not really what it. I don't know if this is like scientific or this is more just kind of spoken logic from gained experience. But the Lightning got in yesterday afternoon. I shouldn't say that. They got in yesterday, early in the morning, from Salt Lake City. So this is not a long trip. They're basically in and they're out. It's not like they came an extra day. They couldn't. I mean, they played Sunday. So you hope that the altitude is not going to work against the Lightning. But whether, you arrive the day before, 2 days before, you're here 6 days, what is true is you cannot have long shifts out on the ice. If you get stuck out on the ice for an extended shift, it is going to take you longer to recover after that shift in a place like Denver. It's never easy. It's harder when you're at altitude because you're already gassed, right? So we talk about keeping it simple. You mentioned that with McKinnon on the ice, which is true. It's also important because of where this game is being played, and it's especially true in the second period where it's a little easier to get stuck out on the ice because your D zone is across the red line from your bench.
Let's get to some questions at Bolts Radio.
By the way, the Avs are going to be taking the ice here shortly. I see a bunch of guys in red jerseys, but I don't know if those are no-contact jerseys or they probably are. I don't usually see a team at a morning skate using red as a color except for injured players, but
why don't you yell down there, partner? See if they
yeah, they do have a couple of injured guys, including Sam Girard, who's been out. Who's been out since the third game of the year. He got injured in the second game of the year.
Garrett says, listen to you guys every single day. We appreciate that. 5-game win streak is very encouraging into that. The fact that our superstars haven't been playing up to snuff or their caliber of play looking good.
So who are these superstars? I mean, I think we're in agreement that Point has struggled. I think Kucherov has given the Lightning some good hockey, particularly after he was sick. And I would agree that Hedman has been a bit up and down, but I maintain like Cirelli's got 7 goals this year. And Brandon Hagel, he got off to a slow start. I think he would admit that. Maybe getting that first goal helped him. We talked about confidence. He scored that first goal, and he scored in every game since. I know last game was an empty netter. So is the fan Garrett not referring to, like when he's saying superstars, who is he referring to? Is he not referring to Cirelli and Hagel? They may not be superstars, but they are very, very important players on the Lightning who are expected to lead Tampa Bay.
I think everybody you mentioned, at least for the sake of the Lightning, and I think that's coming from the slow start, was aided in part because the Stars got off to a slow start.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is fair. And you can make the case the 5-game win streak has been aided by the Stars playing better.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think that's a simple way to look at it. Anthony says, are the boys having a morning skate?
Yes, but we are 2 hours behind Eastern time. So we will be off the air before the Lightning take the ice. But yesterday was a day off, so I would expect a full skate today, and we'll see. I mean, I rode the early bus over. Sometimes the early bus for the skate, if there is a bus, sometimes we can walk, but we're staying not close to the rink. So there was a bus. The early bus, and sometimes this is more full than less full. Sometimes it's the opposite. It was pretty full. Mm-hmm. And I saw all the players that we're probably going to be wondering about. Even Nick Paul. Like, Nick Paul was on that early bus. So, I mean, he's not playing tonight, but he's going to participate in the skate, I'm sure. Crozier was on that bus.
We know
Finley
Crozier's
was on
ready.
that bus. Douglas was on that bus. James, Destu, McDonough, Gensel. I mean, McDonough and Gensel, they're all usually on the early bus. I think they like getting to the rink early, both for the game and for a morning skate.
Yeah.
But you'll have to follow along on social. Gabby's here, and she's usually on top of kind of the line combinations and how things are looking. If you were to ask me, and the fans didn't, but I kind of offered this on yesterday's show, I think Max Crozier is in tonight. I think the Lightning go 7 defensemen. And the simple answer would be Crozier is in for Douglas, with Vasilevsky starting because Johansson got the last game. We'll see if I'm right. It wouldn't be the first time if I'm not right, certainly, or the last.
Second time.
No, more than second.
Nick says, I remember Wedgwood. Very impressed at what he's turned his career into. Was a pure AHL goaltender when he signed him and has really become one of the better backups in the league now.
Yeah, that's fair. So last year, after the Avs acquired him, and again, it was in late November. So basically, you want to say 2 months into the season. The rest of the way with Colorado, he played 19 games. So if you're going to take out 20 games, we're going to say 20 games were played or so before Wedgwood arrived. That means that the remaining 60, he played about a third. He got into 19 games, and he went 13-4-1 with a 1.99 goals against for the Avs. That's very impressive. Save percentage was .917. So when you have a goals against under 2, but a save percentage that's in the 9 teens, basically, that means that he was not seeing a lot of shots. I mean, he was stopping most of them, but that speaks to shot suppression, which is something that I talked about with Colorado this year. They're number 4 in that category. I'm not taking anything away from Wedgwood. It's just that if you have a goals against of 1.99, in most instances, your save percentage is going to be over 920, and his was a little under 920. So he just didn't have to make as many saves to get to that 1.99.
I think we've seen having a good backup goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Lightning, I think, really since Ben Bishop was in net, for the most part, have had a very capable backup.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was Vasi with Bishop.
But he was third string. I mean, he wasn't even the backup when he was with the Lightning's organization.
But look at him now. I mean, he's turned himself into a very serviceable guy. Alan says, excited about tonight's game. A great test for the Lightning tonight. Ari, the power play. Why not have Kucherov quarterback the power play from the top of the circle and put Hedman at the right circle? Thoughts?
So he means at the point for Kucherov?
I think that's where he's headed.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're taking away seam pass options for Kucherov if you put him in the middle. And also you're asking Hedman to shoot from an area where he's not used to shooting. Victor's used to shooting in the middle of the ice. Now, the NHL Morning Skate had a stat. Hedman has the hardest recorded shot in the NHL this year. I think it was over 101 miles an hour. And that was a game against Detroit. And I'm presuming that shot was on net, because then they had another stat that he leads the NHL in shot attempts over 90 miles an hour. But if you say shot attempts, some of those are missing the net. So I think Hedman is fine where he is. He spent most of his career when he's been on the power play, and he spent most of his career on the power play playing in that spot. What I would like to see is more of his shots getting to the goalie, not being blocked and not missing the net. I shouldn't say getting to the goalie, but forcing the goalie to make a save. When he got that shot to the net at the beginning of their first power play against Utah, it led to 3 additional scoring chances. So I don't know about like shuffling the position of where the players are on the power play. And I've talked about this a little bit before. I think it's just about, again, using that word executing better and executing a little faster. The word that we heard used during the homestand by Phil and Brian Engblom, deliberate. They're just a little too deliberate in where they're moving the puck, and the penalty kill unit is reacting in time to whatever it is they're doing. By the way, this looks to be an optional skate for Colorado, because those red jerseyed guys are still out there, and there's probably only about 7 or 8 non-red jerseyed guys. So they've been home, though. This is the second team in a row the Lightning are seeing that is sandwiching one home game between road trips. The trips, admittedly, for Utah were a little bit longer. Like they had a long, 4-game road trip. They came home for one. They're going back on the road. They play tonight in Buffalo. Colorado has been home, kind of like Utah. They played their last game in San Jose on Saturday, and then they don't play again until the weekend. But it's a back-to-back on the road for them. Let me just see how long that trip was prior to this. So they had a 2-game trip. It was a back-to-back. Interesting. Just kind of like the Lightning with these back-to-backs, except they're coming home for one. Remember the Lightning had those 2 sets of back-to-backs on the one trip. So they played at Vegas on Nevada Day. The Lightning played in that game once before. It was actually Halloween Day, but I know that they played in the afternoon. They won that game, and then they flew to San Jose and played the next night, November 1st, in the evening.
Yep.
Lost in overtime, even though they outshot the Sharks 38-23. They lost 3-2. They're home for this game, and then they go to Edmonton, Vancouver for a back-to-back this weekend. Then they have a homestand. But that can be a little tricky. It can almost feel like it's an additional road game. But they've been home for a couple of days. So that's probably why they've had a full practice, at least one, which is why they have an optional today.
Up to the minute part.
Well, this is what happens when we're on the air and the home team is skating. So
let me get to some more questions because we got them coming in. Steve's texting me a bunch too, and I love that. Tampa Bay says the Avs got a fluke cup since we didn't have point for most of the playoffs.
Oh, Tampa Bay.
Don't start.
No.
They
I mean,
won.
the Avs didn't only beat the Lightning. They steamrolled teams in that playoff run. They were due. I mean, they were really due. They had some we talk about the Lightning losing excruciating games. The Avs lost some excruciating games in the playoffs leading up to their cup. I mean, they were in the bubble. They were leading Dallas in Game 7 late. And they gave up the tying goal and then lost in overtime in Game 7. I mean, they just had some – they were up 2-0 on Vegas one year and lost the next 4. I mean, they have to own that, right? But that was is that the Western Conference Final? Oh, it was the second round because that was the year that Vegas went on. It was the year we had the weird conference play because Vegas went on to play Montreal, and Montreal beat Vegas, which is how the Lightning saw Montreal in the final. So in 2022, everything came together for Colorado. Did the Lightning have injuries? Yes, they did. But if you watch the 6 games, the Avs were the better team. They were.
Yeah. It's okay to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that understand the salary cap and the way the league is designed today, that's supposed to happen. You're not supposed to have back-to-backs.
Right.
Or go
and
to
the Lightning were in
finals.
their 3rd straight
Right.
deep run, and the Avs weren't.
You're just not – it's not designed to do it.
Right.
And the league feels that's better. We can have a conversation for another show if we think
But,
that's
the
way to
Avs
go,
the Avs in some ways had to pay for that cup. And how did they pay for the cup? They lost players. Kadri left. Burakovsky, who had a key goal in the final, left, right? Say what you will about Kemper. Kemper left, right? He was their goalie when they won the cup. So they kept on to their main guys, but that's why we saw them having to kind of load up the minutes on many of the players that were key players for them during their cup run because they weren't really able to address some of the players who left. Nico Sturm had a very important role on this team in 2022, and he moved on. 4th-line center. Great on faceoffs.
Right.
Fantastic. So, the Avs have won 1 playoff series since that final. The Lightning haven't won a playoff series, but it's not like you win the cup and, all of a sudden you have smooth sailing for the next several years. It's tough to get back. That's why,
Sure.
What the Panthers have done is certainly, outstandingly impressive, but also very difficult to then come back the next year and do it again and come back the next year and do it again one more time.
Yep. Anthony writes back, Quinn Hughes has been hurt.
Okay.
And not playing.
I think I saw him in their last game, though, so I wonder if he's back. That would explain why he's got, 7 points. I just was looking at the defense scoring in the league.
Injuries happen. As they
Yeah.
say, it's part of the game. Okay, this question, you're going to take us down a rabbit hole, and I don't know if I'm willing to go down there, FKA 322. Speaking of Ross Colton, if you could have one former Lightning player currently playing in the NHL back on the team, who would you pick? So I think this is a trick question
go
because
Are we talking about the player when that player was playing with the Lightning?
No,
let's
make
put
it
that
legit.
player at the same age, or
Has
is
to be
that
right
player now? No,
Has
what
to
I
be right
mean
now.
is that player played with the Lightning when that player was 29, and now that player is 34. Let's
No,
say.
you're getting the player the age now, not when he was, obviously because Steven Stamkos
4 or
we would all
5 years
take.
later. Yes, right.
Now, in theory, all of those guys who have left, this is my politically correct answer, partner, and I don't always like being politically correct.
You don't.
Is that you can make a case for any player that has left the Lightning that they would have a role on this team and help. I mean, you can. For Ross Colton, Steven Stamkos, Mikhail Sergachev, Blake Coleman, Barclay Goodrow, Alex Killorn, Andre Palat. Actually, when I'm talking out loud, that actually helped me remember some of the players. I actually think Palat would serve the biggest need in many ways because I think he has just such great position flexibility that he could be in a top six. You could put him on a third line. He'd be really effective. I think there's still some juice left in that tank.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think the Lightning need more scoring, partner. I think you always want to make sure you have guys who can move up and down the lineup a little bit, can play a certain way. Palat's going to be there with you come playoff time, playing hard. And I think, New Jersey probably feels the same way of having that guy.
Yeah.
That's not to take anything away from like an Alex Killorn or anybody like that because I think obviously can serve a role. I think Stamkos would be interesting. It'd have to come at your price, but it could address potentially two weak spots right now, and that is the power play, and that is in the face-off circle. The issue with Stammer coming back, where do you play him?
Right.
That's why I didn't go there right out of the gate.
And I think it's a fair question to ask about any player who's in his mid to late 30s, which Stamkos is.
Yes.
At some point, you are not going to fill the same role that you filled earlier. And if you're used to filling a certain role, and I'm not talking about, number one power play. I mean, he would be on that. What I'm talking about is, you're not going to be playing 18, 19 minutes a night.
No.
That's true of everyone. Corey Perry is a great example of a guy who was like, yeah, I'm good. Play me whatever you want to play me.
Sure.
I want to be in the NHL. I want to contribute. You want to play me on the fourth line? You want to play me 6 minutes a night? I want to win. I want to play. I want to win.
Good.
I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Right.
This is a guy who
Borderline
won
Hall
the
of Famer.
Rocket Richard.
And he's a
scored
borderline
50
Hall of Famer.
goals.
Yeah, for sure.
So he fully accepted a diminished role. Not all players can as easily adjust to that. And I mean, at some point for every player, you have to adjust to that. So how would that look? Like, how much are you upsetting the apple cart for Stamkos specifically? Right. Yeah, he would fit the role on the power play for sure, and you could use him as a right-handed face-off guy. But I mean, it's kind of what the Lightning were looking at with Glendening, who's a very different player than Stamkos, but it's like they decided, all right, as much as Glendening is helping us in this one area on face-offs, we're going to go younger, honestly. And that's why, they looked at Holmberg, who hasn't exactly filled the role that Glendening had to a T because he hasn't taken a lot of face-offs. But, that was a choice the organization made. So that's kind of my answer on Stamkos. Look, there's a lot of talk out there. I say Elliot Friedman posted this, tweeted this, Nashville, this, that, the other thing with Stamkos. He's had a horrible start to the year, Stamkos. He's got 1 goal and 2 points in however many games they played. 12, 13, 14. He's not scoring on the power play. The team is not, they're hanging in there, but they're not exactly like rocketing to the top of the Western Conference standing. So who knows? Maybe there will be a deal made. Maybe the Lightning will be involved with that. I have no idea. But if you were to ask me the question, like, who would I prioritize to bring back? I would probably go in a lane where you went, which is more of a depth guy that can help even more fill out the lineup. And let me answer it this way. In some ways, the Lightning already made that move because I'm not sure anyone coming back to the Lightning would be able to help them as much as McDonough did last year. So make me an argument that any other player that the Lightning would bring back at an older age would have the same impact that McDonough had on the Lightning's roster last year. I'm not sure you can convince me any other player would do as much. So in some ways, the Lightning have already answered that question, but because the fan asked us the question now with McDonough already on the team, I would be on board with Palat. The other guy I would mention, and honestly I haven't seen him play a lot the last couple of years, or I should say last year. I think I saw him before then, but he always played well against the Lightning after he left. And this is a guy who, even though he's in his mid-30s, would add a something, and that's Goodrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that not knowing where Goodrow's game really is right now. I mean, he's playing on a team that is not winning a lot right now, San Jose, his original franchise. He's more in a, like, complimentary role, which I guess he kind of was with the Lightning. But here's a guy, he can win faceoffs. He can penalty kill. He will do what it takes to win in the playoffs.
He will fight. And a lot of people have talked about, like, I've seen Goodrow fight. I'm not sure he's lost one. That guy knows how to handle himself.
Yeah.
You know, so, again, to me, that's an age thing.
But those are almost different categories than Stamkos. And maybe the fan asked the question thinking about Stamkos. Oh, it was actually about Ross Colton. But
No, I mean, he just wanted to know, like, what form. And I think you can make a strong case because I do think their back end is struggling to provide some offense.
Mm-hmm.
Sergachev would be interesting because he is still young. He has all the skill sets.
That would be a pipe dream, though, because they couldn't afford his contract.
No, that's true. But he's asking, like, I guess if we're operating in a perfect world, everybody's healthy, everybody's performing well. Sergachev,
Utah agrees to trade back Sergachev and take 90% of his contract.
That's right.
Next year it would have to. I think it has to be 50%. It can't.
Sergei's knock. One, it was just hard to get the minutes he probably wanted, obviously here. But two, I think for me it was you always felt there was more offensively, and he was another one very similar to what Hedman is experiencing. The shots on net was not always consistent.
So it was interesting, Greg, that, and I'm going to piggyback on what you just said, when we were sitting waiting for the game to start in Utah, basically. Like I was sitting in my seat, and it was well before the game, excuse me, and what Utah was doing, it was their first home game in a while. They were showing a lot of the goals that Utah had scored already this year.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's just like watching that. And they would play a goal, and then they'd play it like 5 times in a row from different angles, right? And they were going chronologically. Some of them were at the very beginning of the year. Some of them were during their previous homestand. And when they went on the road, like you watch this, you think Utah's going to go 82-0, right? Like all they were doing is scoring goals. But a lot of the goals that they scored, particularly in the power play, and their power play I think had done pretty well, and they'd been scoring a lot. Sergachev was in the middle of it. And he was starting to play with a wrist shot from the point. And he was one of those guys. He has a very good wrist shot. We'd seen him score goals in the playoffs even, wristing the puck right here. Game 1. Lightning were down in game 1. He wristed the puck from the blue line and went in. In these highlights that I was seeing, he was wristing it. It was like tipped. Goalie made the save. There was a rebound. The guy put it in. But, I think that was one thing that Sergachev did well to get his shots on the net. What we saw in the game on Sunday, I remember it was in the third period and the Lightning were up 3-2. Sergachev took a big slap shot in the offense zone, missed the net. So that kind of follows up on your general point. And, this is something that Phil has talked about. Like winding up for the big slap shot gives you more power. But the wrist shot you may be sacrificing a little bit in terms of velocity, but you're gaining some in accuracy.
Yeah. Look,
because you have more control.
Everybody has flaws, and if you could keep everybody, that would be great. But those those would be players I would, and I'm probably missing a few too. So I apologize.
Yeah, that was a good question though.
But I the Palat probably is a sneaky one that not a lot of people remember. But I just think he has, again, I say the word position flexibility because I think he can move up and down the lineup.
It would be an interesting question for John Cooper, and he would probably not answer it because he'd be like, I don't want to offend
with the
all
camera
the other
off.
players. Yeah.
Hey, Coop.
Yeah, he would have to be in a very agreeable, relaxed state.
No doubt.
Forthcoming state to answer that question.
But a good question. I think Chris says, I think Rantanen is a better player than Natchez. Has more size and physicality. Rantanen has 123 points in 99 playoff games, where Natchez has 35 and 66. Natchez loses some of his effectiveness when the game tightens up. 11.5 to me is slightly overpaid. Colorado would have been better giving Rantanen the rumored 12.5 he would have taken. So let me give you my initial thoughts, partner.
Yeah,
you can chime
go
in.
for it.
I agree with you. I think Rantanen is the better player. They overpaid for Natchez because they didn't want to lose him after giving up Rantanen. That's an overpay, no doubt about it. Also factor in the cap is going up over 30% the next 2 years. I mean, it's
but that argument
exorbitant.
would have been the same for Rantanen. Look, if you gave Rantanen an extra $1 million for however many years, the cap is still going to be going up. So that number is going to be a smaller percentage of the cap for both players.
Is that? He says the rumor 12.5. Has that ever been confirmed?
I don't know.
I don't want to get into that because I don't know what was offered.
Yeah, and the other part of this that I don't know. Maybe fans in the know do know. It may have been a contentious negotiation, wherever they were in the negotiations. I mean, to say that the Colorado Avalanche thought Mikko Rantanen wasn't a good player anymore is just false. Like, this had to do with probably the contract and the negotiation. They did get younger with Natchez. I will say that. I think Natchez is 3 years younger than Rantanen, maybe 2.5 years younger. We just saw Rantanen, so I think he's one of these guys with a fall birthday, but he's a 96 birth year, and Natchez is a 99. So Natchez is younger. So I did an interview appearance with the Dallas Stars version of Power Lunch, although I don't know that they go every day. It was before the season started. I think we were right at the beginning of training camp. Anyway, they were doing like a around the league thing, and the Lightning were one of the final teams that they were looking at. So Owen Newkirk, who's their Greg Linnelli, basically, was hosting the show. They had Craig Ludwig on there. They had a panel. Anyway, I joined them, and we talked mostly about the Lightning. But what Owen said at the very end of the interview, he's like, "This is something we've asked every person who has come on around the league, and that is if you could just take one player off the Dallas Stars and put that player on the team that you're representing, forgetting about like salary cap and everything else, who would it be?" My answer was Rantanen. And they were like, actually, most people have not said Rantanen. I said, I wonder if that's because he just hasn't been a Dallas Star that long. They're saying Robertson, they're saying Heiskanen, they're saying Ottinger, Harley, who was a great young player. I'm like, look what Rantanen did in the playoffs last year. So I'm not disagreeing with Chris with his overall take. What I will say, though, is if you were going to trade Rantanen, the guy they got back, first of all, is a tremendous player. I have always liked Natchez. Natchez was on a Carolina team that always won around, but something was off with them when they went deeper. And, maybe he bears some responsibility for that, or just it was team-wide. But Natchez is not only a great player, he is a great complement to McKinnon. So let's see how this duo does moving forward. Maybe Natchez's numbers will be a lot better in the playoffs. I should look up and see what his stats were last year in the playoffs. Let's see how he did. But, that was his first playoff year playing with McKinnon. Rantanen got a lot of those great numbers in the playoffs, playing on a really good Colorado team that scored a lot even in the playoffs and playing often with McKinnon. All right. Natchez, where are you? So he had 5 points in 7 games. McKinnon led the way last year against Dallas. He had 11 points. So if that backs up what the fan was saying, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. They got a very, very good player. And what I tend to say about contracts, whether it's an overpay or an underpay, as long as the team can make it work and they're happy with the player that they have, and it's not prohibiting them from doing other moves, does it really matter? And I mean, as you said, the cap is going up. So if that's what they felt they needed to keep him and they want him to be a part of their future at whatever he is, 26 years old, he'll be 27 in January, good for them. He's not putting on another sweater for
That's fair.
Whatever it's going to be, right?
Yep.
Having said all of that, I really like Rantanen. I mean,
he's a great player.
He is a world-class player and a clutch player, too. We saw that in the playoffs last year.
It makes sense. It makes sense. We've got a chance here for another 5 to 10 minute conversation. And let me dip into
You should tell us about Reef Rum, my friend.
Oh, see, put me on the spot. Now I have to go find the Dave. But I love it.
I should be able to recite it from memory by now. It's been several weeks.
Should we have Reef Rum on the drink Reef Rum while we're doing the show? Probably not. Steve would get upset.
Well, you tee that up. We'll get to it in the next 10 minutes.
I have an updated version that I have to read.
Okay.
Well, I'll get to it here in a second. Let me read a couple more here, partner, and then we'll get to that. Let's go to Nick.
By the way, I misspoke. I said it was Drury's 300th game, 200th game. I was like, wait a minute. That sounds like that's pretty high. He hasn't been in the NHL that long. 200th NHL game for Drury. Congratulations, Tim.
That is. We appreciate that. Nick says, does the altitude affect the roster? Maybe less likely to go 11-7 and double shift the forwards.
Well,
that's a good question.
Yeah, we touched on the altitude. I actually disagree with that because if they're going to go 12-6 with the lineup that they've been using, Douglas has only been playing 3 to 4 minutes. So you're really still going 11 forwards in terms of the workload. Yeah. If Crozier is coming back, I like the idea of 7 defensemen because Crozier hasn't played in a game since October 14th. So you're not asking him to come back at altitude. But that's a little bit more circumstantial. The overall point is not wrong. Like if you have 11 forwards, that's one less forward to divvy up the minutes. But the way the Lightning have been using their 12-6, it's kind of sort of 11-6. And they're spot shifting Douglas.
Yeah.
They could put in another forward,
yeah,
but I don't think that that's likely.
There's no doubt the altitude has an impact on a game. And in an era where stadiums, football fields used to have an advantage, don't. Even hockey rinks, partner. Some were smaller. Some were just, Phil will tell you those stories.
Yeah.
It has become...
The dimensions you're really talking about.
The dimensions have become less of an issue in sports overall, which I think, we talk about this parity. That's something nobody talks about. In addition to the salary cap and players getting better, and it's harder to win games today than it was... When I say harder to win games, the elites are different today than they were 25 years ago. But part of what made teams unique in their ability to win games over the years, the venue they played in, the elements that you played in. In football, take a look at some of those stadiums 35, 40 years ago. Now all of them are kind of the same.
Right.
Cookie cutters, you hear that word. Hockey arenas, the same thing. But there used to be a point where the conditions and the facilities or the venues you played in actually gave you an advantage. And you can make the argument that Colorado is probably, based off of conditions, one of the few venues today where you play actually can make an impact on the outcome of a game.
Yeah, Calgary too. Which
Calgary
is also
too.
at altitude.
Right. So I actually think it's a real thing. And Colorado should use that to their advantage, as much as they can.
What's interesting about the football example, so you're right. I mean, I'm not sure that the field has always been 100 yards, right? So, that part hasn't changed through the years. The stadiums are different. Maybe older stadiums used to, I don't know if the fans were more over the field, if it had a different feel to it. But what is undeniably true about football, more than the other major pro sports, the weather. So for a Southern team to have to go into like Green Bay in December, you hear Green Bay has an advantage, which was always a little curious to me because I was like, what if Green Bay has players who grew up in Florida or Texas, right? And maybe because they're there, it's just part of the culture. You're used to playing in the cold. And what if the Miami Dolphins, if they're going to play Green Bay, Miami has someone who played college football at Michigan where they're playing in the cold. But that is something you hear that, the NFL team from the South has a disadvantage going in the coldest months to play in a northern city. That is where the home field can be an advantage. And maybe the opposite is also true where, in September, a team coming to play in Florida might have a disadvantage because they're not used to the heat and humidity. I guess we can see if the stats bear that out. But
you know where I'm coming from. Like
I know where you're coming from. For sure, hockey rinks used to not all have the same dimensions.
Yeah.
And now they do. But playing in Denver does give an advantage to the home team in that they are used to the altitude if they've been here like on a homestand, and they're probably more used to readjusting when they leave and come back.
No doubt about that. And again, we talk about why is there so much parity in today's game? The cap, the players, but I also think too, to a lesser extent, the venues.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as, they're hostile places, but those used to be some pretty crazy places to play in.
Yeah.
And you just don't have that, as much. Some would actually go as far as saying the cost of tickets. Do you price out the average fan? And the average fan are the ones that usually are just, they're louder, they're into it, and it's more of a corporate setting today. Some would make that argument. And I don't want to make that argument, but some have. Garrett says, Ross is the one for me. Miss Roscoe so much, and he's still very young. If not him, then Palat.
Yeah. Ross Colton's a good player and a big part of what the Lightning did in 2021.
He's
Certainly
a very good
the
player.
Winning goal in the deciding game in the
doubt.
final and was a big part of their team moving forward.
When you talk about depth players on a good team, you look at Ross Colton, the Blake Colemans, the Palats. Those are guys you look at as to why you win championships, assuming you have all the other things.
Right.
situated.
And Ross is younger than those other guys we mentioned, which is what the fan referenced.
I thought somebody was going to say Marchessault or Verhaeghe. We didn't even mention those two.
Verhaeghe.
We didn't even mention those two. That's, I mean, how could we not? Verhaeghe turned himself into a 35 goal scorer.
He was not a big enough part of that 2020 Cup team. I mean, he played a fair amount in the regular season. He barely played in the bubble. I remember there was one game he got into in the bubble and he scored a goal, and I was like, this is a beautiful goal. I really liked him with the Lightning. I was disappointed when he moved on because I just liked what I saw from him. I had no idea that he would go on to the heights that he has reached, where he's become one of the most clutch playoff performers in the last several years in the NHL. But he scored just a bar down, beautiful goal in the bubble, and it was not in one of those round robin games. Like it was a legit game, and it got taken back for offside. One of those plays that had no bearing whatsoever on the goal being scored. Look, he has that in him. But maybe you and I, and maybe a lot of Lightning fans, although you thought of it, maybe a lot of Lightning fans don't think of him because he really didn't become a reliable regular until he reached Sunrise.
Heck of a player. Tonight, enjoy some Reef Rum. How about that? Smooth, versatile, now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a tropical wave of Lightning Mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability partner. Ask for Reef Rum by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. All right, so we're going to have a long pregame tonight.
We are. This is a doubleheader on TNT. There's an early game. Is it Rangers Carolina? There's an early game, so they're pushing. It says 9:30 Eastern for face-off. It is not going to be 9:30 Eastern.
That's going to 10 o'clock close.
Yeah, it's going to be just before 10 o'clock, I think, for the face-off. So,
but I'm going to have it for you.
Kind of a late one.
I'm going to have it for you. I want you to stay
Are you
tuned.
just like riding the unicycle down Bayshore Boulevard? Or are you just like powering this thing for an extra 20 minutes?
My wife said, you better take a nap tonight or today at some point. I said, you know what, I probably
afternoon nap
should.
is always nice.
Does
Enzo allow you to take a
heck
an
no. I mean, that's the other thing. You got kids you got to run around. Enzo doesn't leave me out of his sight, which is great.
You can send them off to infinity.
And beyond.
It's like, you go to infinity, I'm going to take a nap. People are like, what's he talking about? Enzo was Buzz Lightyear for Halloween.
Enzo was Buzz Lightyear.
I saw a picture, by the way.
He's funny.
I like how you got it all tied. My wife was like, all right, I recognize it was
Gianna
Jesse. Right,
Jesse.
So Jesse. And she's like, who's that? Who's...
Gianna was Bo Peep.
Gianna, yeah. And she did a search of the costume. It was like, Bo Peep? Okay, it's like... You have a disadvantage. You have, 3 ladies in the family. And
I know.
I'm sorry, Toy Story, they're a little light on the female characters.
They were. But Ilaria pulled it off well.
Annie was one of the
aliens. Yeah. We are eternally grateful, I think Mish might have. He froze. But yeah, look, Halloween's fun. When you got kids, you do it. And all is well. All right, so we'll be on the air with pregame at 9.
Yes. I think I dropped there for a second.
You might have.
Greg.
That's okay.
They wanted us to stop talking about Toy Story, clearly.
That's okay. That's okay.
Brian's with me tonight, by the way.
Brian is. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yep, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I will talk to you guys closer to puck drop, and that'll be around midnight. But, we'll improvise and go from there. And then you and I will be – are we doing live tomorrow? Did we say live? We'll figure that out.
I don't think we said.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 3 hours behind you guys, so I wouldn't mind.
We may have to do it live. I think we may have to do it.
We're getting
in
pretty late to Vegas.
Yeah. We're going live. We'll do it live, and we'll go from there.
Yeah,
and
team will be in Vegas tomorrow.
Yeah.
They do have a practice scheduled tomorrow. We'll see
Yeah.
exactly how late the team gets in after the game tonight. And then they wrap up the trip on Thursday. We may need to make arrangements for the Friday show, which we've done before, maybe after the game Thursday or early Friday morning, because the team's flying back on Friday.
We'll figure that out. All right, partner. Appreciate you. Great job.
You too.
As always, thanks to Steve Ersnick. Thanks to everybody who listened today. A lot of people chimed in. It was good. Good audience here listening to the show. Tell your friends about it. Hit us up on Twitter at Bolts Radio. We'll be with you tomorrow as well, noon to 1. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.